Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hey there, my name is Sean, also known as Sulfur, a rapper in the minor pantheon of the older guard of nerdcore, most often remembered for escaping handcuffs and straitjackets while rapping about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I'm not here to talk to you about any of that today. Instead, I'm here to talk to you about the latest installment of one of the greatest video game franchises of the last decade, or, well, ever. On today's Fun and Games side quest, I'm here to talk to you about Horizon Forbidden West. Now, before we dig in, I do have a bit of a preface, a little spoiler warning, in that if you've yet to play Forbidden West, my goal is by the time you're done listening, you absolutely pick up and play this masterpiece of a game. In turn, I'm going to keep spoilers for it pretty minimal. I might talk about the first hour or so of story beats, and I will talk about the game's mechanics and machines throughout, but not much more. However, if you've yet to play its predecessor, Guerrilla Games' 2017 Horizon Zero Dawn, I need you to stop listening right now. See, I wholeheartedly believe that Zero Dawn is a masterclass of storytelling and world building full to the brim of incredible gameplay, exploration, and characters to interact with along the way. I would hate to spoil any of the narrative surprises or twists, but also find it impossible to talk about how beautifully Forbidden West builds off of these without also talking about the stage that Zero Dawn sets for the story as a whole. So, I will talk about Zero Dawn in full. You have been warned. And I'm assuming if you're still listening, you've either played Zero Dawn or, as of yet, are unconvinced. Either way, let's dive in. I'll start with a touch of background about myself, in that I'm a huge fan of post-apocalyptic settings and world building. I'm a big fan of the Fallout games. I even enjoyed the installment of Far Cry, where they took a stab at a post-apocalyptic Far Cry 5 and New Dawn. I'm just naturally drawn to these types of settings. That said, it's shameful how long I personally slept on playing Horizon Zero Dawn, because it is one of the best post-apocalyptic worlds I've ever explored, with one of the most imaginative narratives I've ever witnessed. The world of Horizon is set far in the future, 1,000 years after a cataclysmic event wiped all life off the face of the planet. That's right, all life. Through the story of Zero Dawn, you learn that Project Zero Dawn was never about saving humanity, it was about bringing humanity back after it was destroyed. Since there was no stopping a machine scourge that self-replicated and consumed biomass, of course unleashed by some CEO named Ted, a scientist named Elizabeth Sobek spearheaded a project titled Zero Dawn. Through this, they created an AI named Gaia to run a terraforming system comprised of several subordinate functions so that once all life on Earth had ceased and the machines powered down due to lack of fuel, Gaia was then able to use these subordinate functions to both keep the machines dormant while bringing life back to the planet, which you discover gradually as you explore old world ruins in the first installment of the series. Now, this of course is just scratching the surface, as you also find your character, Aloy, is a genetic clone of Elizabeth Sobek, that a mysterious transmission caused Gaia's subordinate functions to act independently of the terraforming system itself, and that one of these, Hades, is hell-bent on destroying all life on the planet. After all, it was a subordinate function created to do just that, as a contingency, just in case Gaia created an ecosystem that was not actually viable. Hades, of course, does become the first game's main antagonist, and though at the conclusion of the game you're able to stop it from reactivating the death machines that once destroyed the planet previously, an after-credits scene shows a single transmission, sending Hades from the machine that housed it into the palm of a man named Silence. Silence is a character voiced and modeled after the great Lance Reddick, and is one of my favorite characters in the series. He's incredible. He's also an interesting character in that you don't really know what his goals are. You know that sometimes those goals coincide with your own, and when they do, he's an ally, but with the understanding that they might not always coincide, and he might not always be an ally. Such as we learn at the end of Zero Dawn. So, where does Forbidden West pick this story up? Well, while we saved the planet for the moment by stopping Hades in Zero Dawn, we never reactivated Gaia, which kept life on the planet viable as a whole. and Forbidden West opens with Aloy desperately searching for a copy of the Gaia AI. Through the game's opening scene, you discover that in the months since Zero Dawn, she's witnessed a blight starting to overtake the land, violent storms that are becoming more frequent and more severe, basically an ecosystem that seems on the tipping point of failing completely. In other words, the game starts in perfect stride with where Zero Dawn left off. Gameplay-wise, the game opens with Aloy, accompanied by an old friend from Zero Dawn, Varl, exploring a Far Zenith lab in hopes to find a copy of Gaia. Far Zenith, as you learn about in the previous game, is a group that tried to flee the planet instead of save it 1,000 years prior. And they also, as you find out now in Forbidden West, tried to infiltrate Zero Dawn and steal a copy of Gaia to take with them, which makes you feel a little less terribly about how their ship was reportedly destroyed in space and never actually made it to its destination. Even still, their theft gives Aloy an inroad to potentially get a much-needed copy of Gaia and gives us, as the player, a fun opening scene in which to begin to experience how wonderfully Forbidden West expands the game mechanics of its predecessor. Aloy is still an absolute badass, able to scale all sorts of walls or cliffs, leaping across chasms and the like, but new additions like the Pullcaster, which you get right in this introductory mission, hint at how the gameplay has broadened and evolved, a motif that permeates the entire game, as it contains a bit of a Metroidvania flair, and that you will continue to acquire skills and gear that will allow you to more fully explore areas you've previously encountered. This mission culminates with a boss battle against a machine that maybe you've already seen through gameplay videos or reviews, but I just can't bring myself to spoil, in case you haven't seen it. This boss battle sets a tone for fighting machines across the game in that they're bigger, more complex, and more interesting. Now, once the battle concludes, and after a brief respite that includes more characters you'll remember from the first game, Varl suggests you seek out an old acquaintance, one who you'll find out has buried himself deep in the Forbidden West. Your old friend, finger quotes around the friend part, the one and only Silence. This is the start of Horizon Forbidden West. And one of the first things that immediately hit me upon truly entering, the world of Horizon Forbidden West is just how absolutely huge it is. The map feels twice the size of the first game, and it's saturated with things to do, characters to interact with, places to explore. Staples like hunting grounds and cauldrons and tall necks make a return here, but there's just so much more added that there's no reasonable way to laundry list it all. Melee pits and cities to practice new melee combos that the game introduces, scrapper camps, rebel camps and outposts, collectibles from old world ruins and downed plains, even an arena unlocked through the story where you're pitted against machines to get some of the best gear in the game. That isn't even mentioning the many side quests and errands that the characters you meet will have in store for you. And these characters, these missions, and the cities you'll find them in all have a uniqueness and individuality to them that I didn't realize the first installment might have lacked until playing this game. There's one setting in particular, which I won't mention by name, but I will say, out of all the different games I've seen tackle this location, Forbidden West might have my favorite spin on it yet. It's truly something to behold. However, that's also Forbidden West in a nutshell. The entire game is full to the brim of sights to behold. Flora and fauna growing across the 1,000-year-old remnants of skyscrapers still often litter the distance, but while you're traversing the greater locational variances of both jungles and deserts, swimming underwater to see what lies beneath the waves, and so on. But I don't love this game or this franchise just because it's beautiful to gawk at or because it has one of the best stories I've ever experienced. The gameplay itself is top of its class. Just like Zero Dawn before it, taking machines head-on with Aloy and Forbidden West is some of the most fun I've had playing in a game in a long time. Where the first game laid a foundation for looking for weaknesses and particular parts of machines to target, Forbidden West builds on this by placing emphasis on targeting weak components not only to take machines down, but also to be able to effectively scrap those parts in turn, lest they get destroyed with the machine. This, like virtually every change the game introduces, adds an extra layer of depth to the combat while never feeling like it detracts from how fun it is to take down a deadly machine that's towering over you. Now, To take those machines down, there are plenty of new weapons, each introducing their own mechanics, and now weapons and armor have several different tiers to which they can be upgraded so that they can remain viable for longer periods if you like. Plus, while we're talking about game mechanics, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that Forbidden West has one of my favorite inventory systems in, well, any game. Being pretty much a hoarder in video games, one of the only bones I had to pick with Zero Dawn is how there was no place to store anything that you pick up beyond what you could carry on your person. Forbidden West, however, not only corrects course by giving you an unlimited space and a stash that you can find in most major cities, it creates a system where if you don't have enough space to store something you pick up on your person, it sends it automatically to that stash so that it's waiting on you. This means that you can keep picking up medicinal berries even when your pouch is full, and in turn makes a really easy way to re-up on those consumables after large battles or big story missions. I genuinely wish more games would adopt this approach. It's almost like a game designer said, managing encumbrance and inventory isn't much fun, actually. What if we just made a game that's fun? And it works. It works so well. Another thing I love is how the game's skill tree does more to build on the skills of the previous game than taking those away from you and making you reacquire them. Unlike a Mega Man entry where, despite having the weapons from 8 robot bosses prior, you're once again starting off with just an arm cannon, Forbidden West starts you off with a few skills that were previously unlockable in Zero Dawn's skill tree and then builds on top of those. You start the game with concentration, the ability to slow time when aiming, and instead can improve it through the skills. You pretty much begin the game, allowing you to call a mount that you've overridden. This building upon what was established instead of removing and having to reacquire was a really nice touch that I appreciated, and it allowed the previous game to flow so well into this one. Finally, as weird as it seems, I've got to give some love for the settings menu. I know. It seems like an odd thing to point out, but really, how often are you glad just to find the ability to remove headgear from the character's aesthetic look in a game? Settings menus are, on average, generally pretty much the same basic cornerstones and not much more. Forbidden West, however, is anything but. Remember how I mentioned that there are components that need to be shot off machines or else they're destroyed? Well, if you don't like that change, you could turn it off. My favorite thing, and the number one tip I'd recommend to new players, is you can turn off the pickup animations when collecting things off the ground. It's a total game changer to be able to pick up ridgewood and medicinal berries while running at full speed, particularly with your newfound freedom and being able to store these in infinite amounts. If you don't like how time slows when you go to your weapons wheel, you could turn it off, or you can make it even slower. This, alongside several tiers of game difficulty, mean that you can finally tune this game experience to be exactly what you want to play. And that was genuinely refreshing. Seriously, if you haven't, check out that settings menu. Anyway, I'll end by saying that in 2017, Guerrilla Games gave us an absolute masterpiece with Horizon Zero Dawn, introducing us to Aloy and the world around her, taking us on an incredible adventure that was overflowing with top-notch gameplay, characters, and settings. It set an unimaginably high bar for a sequel, and it's a high bar that somehow Horizon Forbidden West manages to clear effortlessly. It's a compelling expansion of the world and story introduced to us in Zero Dawn that interweaves old characters and story beats into new adventures, characters, twists, and turns. Simply put, it's one of the best games I've ever played, and I hope you have fun playing it too. Thanks for joining me on this side quest, and happy gaming.
Hi, I'm Matt, aka Stormageddon, and I'm the host of CPOV Autographs at certainpov.com. It is a bi-weekly interview series where I interview folks from all over the arts, from writers to comedians to magicians to musicians, even actors, historians, podcasters, pretty much anyone who's willing to chat with me for a little bit. If you like interesting conversations with even more interesting people, go to certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts, and remember, music is life, and life is good.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.